Good hello everyone, my name is Nathan ELEMENTofFROST. Welcome to the return of my episode review videos for The Walking Dead. This one is doing it on last night's episode of The Walking Dead. This is The Walking Dead Season 5, Episode 9, mid-season premiere, entitled What Happened and What's Going On. I was wrong about a lot of things, actually, when I did my prediction video. And it's a prediction video for a reason. It's not, guaranteed it's going to happen video. It's a prediction video. And I will admit, I was wrong on a lot of things. You know, I had some very, very minor detail things right, like the fact that they actually went to Virginia to go to Noah's place. Again, making Wiltshire Estates, making an appearance in the TV show, although in the TV show they called it Shirewilt, or Shirewilt, I don't know what you guys want to call it, but they had it Shirewilt Estates. Very weird. I'm not really sure why they went with Shirewilt and not Wiltshire, like the comic books, but nonetheless, obviously it was a correct portrayal of the of Wiltshire Estates in the comic book. Now, I didn't really see this episode coming, you know what I mean? Like, I seen the whole going to Virginia, honoring Beth's wishes, because, as we know, I mean, honestly, Beth wanted to go to Virginia with Noah. You know, she wanted to get him home. She wanted to get him to his family. She knows how important family is, like, especially in these times, you know what I mean? She knows how important that it is, and that's what she wanted to do for Noah. You know, she lost her family. Maggie was no longer with her. She lost Herschel. Her mother died a while ago. She has boyfriends upon boyfriends, just stacks of bodies, basically. But no, she wanted to get Noah home. That was her wishes, and she sacrificed herself for that. So that's what the group is doing. That's what they honoring Beth for. You know what I mean? That, like, she sacrificed herself, so this is what the group is doing. They're doing it for her wishes, basically. Now, they get to Shirewilt, or Wiltshire Estates, in two cars. The group's separated in two cars. We actually don't see the other group. The only group we see includes Rick, Tyrese, Michonne. Rick, Tyrese, Michonne, and Noah. That's what the group includes. So, there you are. Now, I wasn't really too sure about what was going to happen, really, you know what I mean? But near the end of the episode, I kind of figured that it was going to happen, if you know what I mean. I don't want to spoil anything right now, but just to get that out of the way, guys, spoilers ahead. I'll throw that at you right now. It's a review video for last night's episode. Obviously, there's going to be spoilers. You know, it's pretty obvious. But anyway, I also forgot one person that was included in Rick's group, and that was Glenn. So I do apologize for that. I didn't include his name there, but there. Glenn was there as well. So Glenn, Michonne, Rick, Tyrese, and Noah. I keep forgetting Noah's name. Anyways, yeah, they're in a group, and we find out that they're traveling to Virginia, Richmond, Virginia, in two vehicles, okay? So the episode starts off in a montage. Someone's digging dirt with a shovel. Gabriel is reading a eulogy, basically. You can see Maggie kind of crying. There's a picture of a car. You know, not really a picture, like motion of a car, and someone's looking out the window. Maggie's crying on the side of the road. And then what really confused me, because this happened at the start of the episode, is that Mika and Lizzie are back. Not obviously alive, but it was some sort of a vision type thing. Mika and Lizzie smile and say, "It's better now." And then Mika says, that's what Mika says. They both smile, and Mika says, "It's better now." And then it cuts to a picture, like a framed painting of a house, rather, and it says, well, it doesn't say anything. Blood drips basically onto the framed painting of the house. You know what I mean? It's just, it's dripping, you know, one drip at a time, and then it kind of becomes this giant pool of blood on the picture. And that part was really, really confusing to me. I didn't really understand that too much. In the montage, someone was digging dirt with a shovel. We can only assume that they were burying Beth, or at least that's what I was assuming. Gabriel was reading a eulogy, and Maggie was crying also on the side of the road. So I was thinking, you know, they were obviously doing it for Beth or something. Wrong. Totally, 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 totally wrong. Now, we'll get into that a little later, of who they were actually doing it for. But, anyway, during that montage, kind of in the middle of it, sitting beside a campfire, Noah tells Rick Noah tells Rick that Beth had planned to accompany him to his walled community in Richmond, Virginia, which obviously, as we find out, was Shirewilt Estates, which I still can't wrap my head around why they didn't use Wiltshire. I'm guessing it's for copyright reasons, but, I mean, it's The Walking Dead. It's all The Walking Dead. I don't really understand. Nonetheless, the next day, Rick informs the others of Noah's potential heaven or haven, I guess as you could call it, because this Walden community was supposed to be really, really safe. He basically explains, you know, this is a really long trip, but if it works out, this is the last trip we have to make. You know, this is where we're going to stay. This is where, you know, we're going to be. This is our new home, basically, is what he's saying. So, that's when they're planning to go. So the group basically caravans to Virginia in 2 cars. Like I said, 2 cars. One car, Tyrese, Noah, Rick, Maggie, and Glenn. Not Maggie, fucking Michonne. Goodness, man, it's early. You know what I'm saying? It's early. Anyway, so yeah, Michonne, Rick, Glenn, and Tyrese and Noah. They're all in one car, along with Carol, assuming Daryl and pretty much everybody else in another car. Now, so. During this car drive, you know, like I said, we only see one group, which is Rick's group. Rick and everybody are in this car, and Tyrese is kind of talking to Noah. You know, Tyrese is the one driving, Noah's beside him. They basically explain, you know, how long till we get there, and Noah says, you know, 5 miles or so, roughly. Tyrese reassures Noah that Beth's death was not his fault. He says that it went the way it had to, and it was always going to. He then tells a story about his father, who made him and Sasha listen to the radio and stay up with the current events, explaining it was their duty as citizens of the world. And then Tyrese says he called it the high cost of living. Yeah. Okay, so, not only that, it was basically to ask, for them to answer a question that's kind of been going on in their minds, because on the radio they were playing something about a war that was ongoing, you know what I mean? And the question that was always asked was, what happened and what's going on? And, you know, listening to the radio kind of fulfilled that question, if you know what I mean. Like, that was the high cost of living, was finding out what happened and what's going on. It was their duty to basically know what's going on in current news, really, if you know what I mean. Anyway, as they near the community, Rick contacts Carol by walkie-talkie and instructs her group to stay back while they scope out the area. Noah tells Tyrese that his mother and twin brothers were still alive when he last saw them. About 2 miles out from that community, Rick's group, parks their SUV in the woods near Noah's community, Shirewilt Estates. Noah leads them the rest of the way on foot. At the entrance, Glenn peers over the gate and basically shakes his head. Noah scrambles over the gate and finds the streets. Got a phone call. Noah scrambles over the gate and basically finds the streets basically littered with dead bodies. And this kind of, it broke his heart, you know what I mean? Obviously, like, what wouldn't, you know? That was his community. That was his family, basically. That's who he was living with before him and his father went on a run, and, you know, he got kidnapped, or, I guess kidnapped, not really. But, anyway, taken up and everything like that. Now, anyways, so that happened. He finds his family, you know, he's broken. He lies down on the ground and kind of just sobs, basically, you know what I mean? Like, I don't blame him. You know, if I came back to my family expecting them all to be alive, it would suck if you found them all ripped apart on the streets. You know, that would be shitty. So, anyways, he collapses in tears. Like I said, Rick suggests that they sweep the neighborhood for supplies. Michonne then says, "Then what?" And then, you know, she wants something more than just surviving. You know what I mean? And we'll get into that a little later as well. So, Tyrese now stays with Noah while the others scavenge. Noah obviously is still on the ground. As they sweep, Rick confesses to Glenn and Michonne that he wanted to kill Dawn, even though it was clear she hadn't meant to shoot Beth. He says he agreed to go to Richmond, not because he believed it would pan out, but because it was Beth's wish to get Noah home. And he basically says that this was for her, and it could have been for us too. Glenn basically now reassures Rick that he too would have shot Dawn. You know, not saying that he went cold or anything, or at least cold by himself. You know, everybody now is out, you know, in this world, making decisions that have to be made, and also not really going crazy, but losing their humanity a bit. You know what I mean? Like, earlier, you know, if you made a mistake and you shot somebody, and it was an honest mistake, you know, you didn't mean to, it was just a reflex, because, let's be honest, Beth did, you know, shove a pair of scissors into her arm. Obviously it was just reflex, you know, she looked back and said that, you know, I didn't mean to, you know, we could read her lips. You wouldn't just shoot her, you know what I mean? You would kind of analyze the situation, and yeah, I mean, shit would go down. I don't think anybody would die in a previous sort of life, or even if they're behind walls, you know what I mean? Like, if they're not hardened because of being outside, I think that's what would have happened, you know what I mean? They would have analyzed the situation, been like, okay, you know, but we're taking Noah, anyways, just because, you know, you killed fucking Beth, so, anyways, there's that. That's basically all I got right there. Anyway, basically, Glenn reassures Rick that he too would have shot Dawn. So, back to Tyrese and Noah. Tyrese basically tries to sort of get through to Noah, because Noah's, obviously, he's still sitting there sobbing. He basically says to Noah that, you know, this isn't the end. I've been through, obviously, something similar with the loss of Karen, and with basically the loss of his whole family, really. He basically assures him that this isn't the end, and Noah suddenly gets up and runs down the street towards his house, and Tyrese goes after him. So Noah keeps running until he reaches his house. Tyrese advises him to stay outside, but Noah insists on entering. They walk basically through the blood-smeared entryway and find the charred body of Noah's mother on the living room floor. This was dark. This was real dark. So yeah, Noah kind of kneels down beside her, you know, says his goodbyes, really. That's pretty much it. Says his goodbyes, you know, he covers her up with a blanket. Tyrese, off in another bedroom, hears some scratching sounds and everything like that. He searches a bedroom down the hall. He finds the dead body of one of Noah's twin brothers in the bed. As he studies the family photos on the wall, everything like that, Noah's obviously still out in the living room, everything like that. He studies the family photos on the wall, and he sees the other twin, which is now a walker, obviously. You know, he noticed, by looking at the pictures on the wall, that they were a set of twins. So the person that was literally lying on the bed, dead already, he has a brother, and it's his twin. And this twin, now a walker, sneaks up behind Tyrese while Tyrese is examining the pictures. Tyrese instantly notices that these brothers are obviously twins. You know, he's got to be here somewhere. He turns around, and the walker bites Tyrese on the arm. You know, Tyrese gets bitten. There's no other way to put it. He straight up gets bitten on the arm. Noah rushes in, stabs his brother through the eye, and then runs to get help. He says that, you know, I'm just stay here. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to get Rick, everybody. And Tyrese collapses to the floor, and he tries to kind of stop the flow of blood. You know, obviously he's in shock and awe, thinking he's going to die, you know, everything like that. You know, he just got bitten by a walker. You know, everything that I've worked so hard to basically do and accomplish and protect people is coming to an end because kind of a dumb mistake. You know what I mean? He's analyzing pictures when he already previously heard scratching and everything like that. He takes a moment from his time in the real world and basically just looks at photos. You know, that's obviously no to hate to him. You know, it happens. You can't just be in the real world the whole time, if you know what I mean. Like, it would be kind of hard to do so mentally. You know, he takes literally a brief moment, a brief second, and he pays for it, you know? So, anyways, he gets bitten. Noah runs for help. Tyrese goes to the floor, tries to basically stop the flow of blood. He begins to basically hallucinate a radio report from a distant war. Again, this is leading back to where we've seen previously in the car that Tyrese was sort of talking to Noah about his father always making him listen to the radio and everything like that. And then one by one, previous survivors and previous people that we've known and that he's encountered starts to appear. So, first off, there was Martin. And Martin, as you guys know, was one of the Terminants from all the way back in Season 5. The start of Season 5, rather. We're still in Season 5, trust me. Anyways, Martin, the guy that was in the cabin, he threatened to kill Judith if Tyrese didn't get outside. Tyrese got outside, killed the walkers, came inside, speared the living fuck out of him. Obviously, got Judith. You know, he beat the shit out of Martin. And then told everybody that he killed Martin, but he didn't. You know, he didn't want to. He didn't think he needed to at the time. We later found out that he should have. You know, people paid the price with it. You know, Bob, you know, his leg was gone. If he would have killed Martin, that might not have happened. You know, that's kind of what Martin was bringing up. You know, if you told your people that you killed me, but if you actually did, if you put a bullet through my head, Bob could still be alive, and having Bob alive could have made a difference with Beth. And having Beth alive could have made a difference with you not getting bit. And he's this villain, obviously, and he's trying to rationalize a momentary mistake of leaving him alive, and basically saying that Tyrese was doomed from the start. And he goes back to the line of, you're the kind of guy that saves babies, so you're doomed to die. You know what I mean? So, that's obviously a quote we heard from him back in episode 1, saying that, you know, why don't you get out of here, take the car, leave, you're the guy that saves babies, you're going to die. So, and he's not wrong, you know what I mean? So, Tyrese, literally, like I said, paid one moment of attention towards that photo, and, you know, he paid the bill, which is sort of what we're getting into next. But before that, it goes off to Bob, Lizzie, Mika, and then the governor. The governor makes a return, guys. Obviously dead as hell. One of Tyrese's hallucinations. Bob pops up, basically says, you know, it went the way it had to, everything like that. Lizzie Mika pops up, says, you know, it's okay, Tyrese, it's alright, it's better now. The governor in the room, which I actually watched a little bit of The Walking Dead, Inside The Walking Dead. It was a YouTube kind of exclusive sort of thing. It's also on the AMC website. It was basically, Tyrese basically said, Chad Coleman, the guy who plays Tyrese, he was like, to me, the governor was sort of death. You know what I mean? It was sort of like he was fighting death. Tyrese wanted to fight death, and Tyrese wanted to fight the governor. So the governor brings up these quotes that were back in Season 3. He says to Tyrese, he says that, Tyrese, you told me that you were going to do whatever it took to earn your keep. That's when they first got to Woodbury. Back in Season 3. After Rick kind of flipped out on him at the prison, and then, you know, they went off to see the governor and everything like that. It got all fucked up, and then got back to normal at the end of Season 3. Now, the governor is basically appearing in the room saying, you know, you have to pay the bill. Basically, he says that you would have to do whatever it was you needed to do to earn your keep. And, you know, this is sort of him paying the bill, dying, you know what I mean, for kind of trading on the governor, sort of going back on his word, everything like this. Martin points out that if Tyrese had killed him in the cabin, he would have never been around to tell Gareth the whereabouts of their camp, everything like that. And then Bob and Beth might still be alive. Bob disagrees, obviously him being sort of, obviously a good guy, hallucination in this. Bob disagrees and says it went the way it had to, the way it was always going to. Sort of reminiscing to what Tyrese said previously in the episode while in the car talking to Noah, talking about, you know, Beth's death. There was nothing that we could do to change it, and kind of Bob sort of reiterates that quote, but obviously in Tyrese's words, because as we all know, it's a hallucination. It's not actually Bob talking. Now the governor says the bill has to be paid, and he lunges at Tyrese. Tyrese suddenly realizes that the governor is actually a walker. It's not the walker governor. It turns into a completely different walker, so don't think that the governor survived and it was a walker. It's not. It was just hallucinating that a walker was the governor. You know what I mean? And the walker's death, basically. It attacks, and Tyrese kind of gets up. You know, he fights it off. He's pinned against a wall, and he doesn't know what to do. And Tyrese uses his bitten arm as sort of a shield. So we know that this arm that he already got bitten on is going to have to come off. You know, it's either he dies or this arm is going to come off. So he realizes that, you know, this arm is no longer good to me, so why not let him bite it again? You know what I mean? So he puts his arm in the walker's mouth and kind of shoves him off of him, able to kill the walker. He hurls him over a chair, and then the walker's head, obviously from Tyrese beating it in, was bleeding. And this is where it comes into play of the picture on the floor that we previously seen in the episode all the way at the start of the montage, where Lizzie and Mika says, it's okay now. This is where it all starts to come into play. Basically, the walker is kneeling, like not really kneeling, but sort of over a chair, and the walker is bleeding onto the framed painting of the house. Like I said, again, what we recently seen in the episode at the beginning. So, now, cut to Michonne. Meanwhile, proposes to Rick that they rebuild Shirewilt estates and make it their home. That's what she says. You know, she says, we can cut down trees, we can start to build up the walls. Rick basically immediately dismisses the idea, arguing that the dense forest would obstruct their sight lines. They need to know if someone's attacking. You know what I mean? They need to know that. They made that mistake before with the prison. That's what he's basically pointing out. Obviously, there was a forest around the prison, and that kind of made their sight line kind of limited, you know, in a way. There was one road in that they could really see, and some forest was surrounding. And that kind of, like I said, made it hard for them to see. Obviously, it was a little bit safer because there was a fencing, and then obviously a building inside of that, a giant prison, basically. And he basically dismisses the idea, like I said, arguing that the dense forest would obstruct their view. They examine the ruined perimeter and find severed human arms and legs scattered around a breach. Now, this is really weird. This is where the legs come into place. There's no torso, no head. It's just legs and arms everywhere. And it's very, very weird. I don't really understand it too much yet. But, anywho, here it is. So, basically, determined to find a home, Michonne suggests that they head to Washington, D.C. She tells Rick that it's a chance. We know that Eugene lied about there being a cure in Washington, but he's not wrong. You know what I mean? So if you really do think about this, Washington is the capital, right? Capital state. If there was a chance for survival and for a cure, and, the best place to hold out, it would be Washington, at least you'd assume, because that's where they would take the president. That's where they would, be all militarized. I don't know if I'd rather visit the military. They'd probably shoot you on sight or something. I don't know about that, but I might take a different approach to that. I don't know if I'd go to Washington, even though it might be the only hope for a cure or anything like that, or protection. You never quite know. They could just take you down because they think you're a threat or something. So, anyway, they She proposes to go to Washington D.C. and she basically says, "Don't you want one more day with a chance instead of just surviving?" And Rick agrees. Now Rick, Michonne, and Glenn hear Noah off in the distance screaming, and they run to him, and they find him cornered by walkers. They rush to rescue him, and then they rescue him, after which Noah reports that Tyrese was bitten. Back at Noah's house, Tyrese continues to hallucinate. Beth plays a guitar. That's right, the return of Beth. And the governor berates him, basically, him for forgiving Carol. You know, he basically says, you know, she killed somebody that you love and you forgave him. Tyrese struggles to get to his feet. He basically yells at him, saying, this is, in a way, again, thinking back to Chad Coleman's words, he's fighting off death at this point. The governor is death. He struggles to his feet. He basically says, it's not over, to the governor, and he says that I'm not giving up. He falls back against the wall. Rick's group arrives, and Lizzie and Mika kind of rush over to him, kind of go over to him, and say, you know, it's going to be all right. They hold out his arm. They kind of look at his arm, kind of look to be examining the wound and everything like that. And then the girl's hands turns into Rick's hands. Rick pulls his arm out, and Michonne chops it off with her sword. So there you go. They just amputated Tyrese's arm to prevent the spread of infection. They carry Tyrese back to the van, fighting off walkers along the way. Over his walkie-talkie, Rick tells Carol to prepare to cauterize Tyrese's stump. He basically says, don't let Sasha or Carl see this. They don't need to see it, everything like that. They pull out of the woods. Rick crashes the SUV into the truck. They basically, you know, they carried Tyrese the whole way there. And this is what I've noticed as well. Along the way, there were so many situations where it seemed that death was trying to follow and grab Tyrese by the leg, you know, by the ankle, by the arm, you know, everything like this. I kind of noticed that death was just trying to get him. You know what I mean? Like it was his time or something like that. Like they were kind of moving. A walker was about to jump on Tyrese again. Rick shoots the walker away. You know, they're fighting for Tyrese's life in a way. And they're going through a wire fencing. Tyrese's foot gets caught on the other side of the fence. There was a walker coming towards Tyrese's foot. Glenn struggles to get his foot out. He does. Like I said, they keep pulling him away from death over and over and over again. At least this is what I like to take it. It's like death was kind of following him. You know what I mean? It was like Final Destination or something like that. And I found it really, really cool. But anyways, they get him in the car. Rick crashes the SUV into a truck trying to get out of there. The wheels were, you know, not obviously they were spinning, but they were kind of not obviously getting traction in the mud. He crashes the SUV into a truck, and that's when the walker torsos, which were missing their arms and legs, spill out of the truck bed, and then Rick peels away. So if we kind of look back to what happened and what we saw in Wiltshire Estates or Shirewilt Estates, with all the arms and the legs everywhere, missing torsos and heads, this is where they all came out of the back of the truck, and I still have yet to really understand it. You know, I don't know. Does someone have sick fetishes or something? Like, I didn't really understand it too much, what happened there. But anyway, that's that. He peels away. As the SUV speeds down the road, Tyrese's hallucinations continue. You know, he's kind of leaning his head against the window in the back seat, which again, we can kind of look back on the starting of this episode, when that montage was going on. There were shots of somebody looking out the car window, everything like that. And again, that turns out to be Tyrese. He stares out a window, and he listens to another report on the radio about the war. And this is when Tyrese sort of gives up. You know what I mean? He basically says, turn it off. And if you think about it, you know, this was his father kind of saying, you know, it's your responsibility, your duty as a civilian of the world, to listen to the radio, to see what's going on, you know, everything like that. It was your duty to kind of know things, you know what I mean? And he's just getting tired of it, basically. He says, turn it off, and that was kind of key word for him giving up, in a way. So he says, turn it off quietly, and then he sees Bob, Beth, Lizzie, and Mika all in the car with them. Lizzie and Mika are in the back seat, Beth's driving, and Bob is in the passenger seat. they smile gently, and basically Lizzie and Mika say it's okay. Tyrese says, Beth says, well, it's okay, Tyrese, and then Mika adds, it's better now, which again we see at the starting of the episode. That we didn't really understand, but now we do, because it's a hallucination of Tyrese and everything like that. So we kind of see his eyes shut, it kind of fades to black a bit, and we see his eyes shut. The SUV pulls over to the side of the road. Rick and everybody get out of the car. They pull Tyrese out of the back seat, and they lay him on the asphalt. Rick kneels beside the body, as Michonne basically readies her katana. And it's a very, very sad time. You know what I mean? It's shitty when you lose a character. It really is. Especially the character and caliber of Tyrese. We've seen him since the mid-season finale of season 3. It's been a while. He's been there for quite some time. Along with Beth, everything like that. Just dealing with Beth's death. We usually don't see a death in the mid-season premiere of The Walking Dead, or at least we haven't for the last few mid-season premieres, like season 3. We didn't see a death in the mid-season premiere. We've seen obviously small character deaths when Daryl and Merle were in the town and everything like that, but no main characters. I don't know if I consider Tyrese a main character, but I just mean more of a front storyline character. Not somebody in the back that's kind of irrelevant and, you don't care if they die or anything like that. But, we've seen Beth die and we've seen Tyrese die. It was a very, very intense episode back for a mid-season premiere, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was great. Great writing as usual. Great episode. An awesome TV show. I love The Walking Dead, guys. Anyways, so yeah, they obviously Michonne readies her katana. And then Gabriel starts to read a eulogy as the group buries Tyrese. Again, we heard this eulogy back at the starting of the episode. It was kind of like a flash forward type thing, or a preview, or some foreshadowing possibly. Gabriel reads a eulogy as the group buries Tyrese. Again, I assumed usually that this was Beth, because we've seen Maggie crying, everything like that. And this is just gonna hurt Sasha so badly. Starting of the season, she lost Bob, and the mid-season premiere, she's now losing her brother. You know what I mean? Like that's shitty. that's real shitty. There's no other way to put it. So she stares silently at the mound and walks away. Rick basically now picks up the shovel, fills the grave alone. Again, going back to the very, very beginning of the episode, the opening scene where dirt was being shoveled into a grave. Rick fills the grave alone and basically growing more and more determined with each shovelful of dirt, basically. He keeps getting angrier and angrier and angrier and more determined to do right by his group and to save lives. You know what I mean? Like, he can't do it all the time, and that's what kills him. That's what really hurts him. He can't save lives, and he realizes that. He wants to. He's the leader. That's what he's supposed to do. But it's out of his hands most of the time. You can't do it all the time. So, anyways, that's the end of the episode, guys. That was the end of Season 5, Episode 9, the mid-season premiere entitled What Happened and What's Going On. The title obviously references to Tyrese's past and everything like that. Very good episode nonetheless. I'd say I give it probably a 9.5 out of 10. Very, very good. I loved the episode as usual. I'd probably be lying if it was a 10 out of 10, because obviously, there's always room for an improvement in any TV show. I don't care if it's Breaking Bad or anything like that. I mean, Breaking Bad was pretty fucking good, so if any TV show was to get a 10 out of 10, it would probably be Breaking Bad in my opinion. But nonetheless, there it is. That's the episode, guys. Hopefully you guys did enjoy today's video. If you did, feel free to hit the video up with a like. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the Dying Light gameplay as well. If you did, hit the video up with a like with that. If you haven't, subscribe if you haven't already, like I said. And my prediction video for this week's upcoming episode of The Walking Dead, Season 5, Episode 10 now, which is entitled Them. Just literally, Them. Episode 10. Season 5, Episode 10, Them. 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 I'm not really sure what that's referring to yet, but I would definitely will get more into it. I'll watch some sneak peeks, some previews, some promos, everything like that before I do my prediction video. Also, last night, the series premiere, the pilot episode of Better Call Saul was on the air. It continues tonight. It was a 2-night series event, sort of. Man, I'm telling you, the nostalgia from Breaking Bad, it was so fucking cool, and I loved it. If you guys are interested in seeing me review Better Call Saul, leave that in the comment section, or hit the video with a like, whatever you guys want to do, and I can definitely do that. I'm not going to be doing a prediction video for that, because like I said, I think that would be a bit too much work, doing, review videos and prediction videos for both shows. That'd be a loadful, of work. So anyway, I can do a brief review show for Better Call Saul because I would actually be interested in doing it. I might actually start it off maybe tomorrow of doing a review show for Better Call Saul. The 2-night series premiere, not just episode 1, but episode 2 as well. So if you guys would be interested in that, leave it in the comment section below. Like I said before, subscribe if you haven't already, and tune in my prediction video on Thursday, guys, for episode 10. Alright, guys, later.